Look, if someone's going to be offended by me calling it a women's barbell and saying, hey, can you use the women's barbell because you can't lift the men's barbell properly? I don't give a whether you're a CrossFitter, weightlifter, powerlifter, whatever. I don't care about how much weight they can lift. If I give someone a training bar and they're a grown ass man, I'd be like, hey man, that's what kids lift. But that is what the standard barbell for kids. And then there's a standard barbell for women. All right, ladies and gentlemen, something that has come across my Instagram DMs quite a bit lately is this post from Morning Chalk Up. Now, Morning Chalk Up is like a news outlet, I guess you could say, for CrossFit. I've seen them quite a bit, and I actually kind of like following them because I can get updated on things that happen in the CrossFit world. But this post specifically has created a lot of noise. It seems like there's a lot of engagement here, especially compared to their recent posts. Like this has 2,000 comments, and the next post after that has 27 comments. The one before that has 44 comments. So this was a big thing. The case for moving away from quote unquote gendered barbells. You know, obviously reading that and thinking about the big hullabaloo in the world around genders and non-binary and trans people, especially in sport and now in strength sport, something that I've covered, whether it's powerlifting, weightlifting. There's also been instances in swimming and track and field, and it's something that a lot of people like to talk about, and I imagine that this is on the same line as that. But instead of just kind of assuming what this is going to be about, I'm actually going to read the article a bit because I haven't seen it yet. So here we go. If you ever stepped a nano-clad foot into a CrossFit box, odds are you've heard the 35-pound, 15-kilo barbell called a women's barbell and a 45-pound, 20-kilo barbell called a men's barbell. So just right away, the 35-pound, 15 kilos, it's actually closer to 33 pounds for 15 kilos. And then 45-pound is actually closer to 44 pounds. That would be closer to a 20-kilo barbell, whatever. That's a minor error, but no one really cares. Gendering a barbell is not only inaccurate, it's just plain silly. That's why activist and owner of Rocket Community Fitness, Alyssa Royce, urges CrossFit box owners and coaches to designate barbells and prescribed weights in different, actually helpful ways. Barbells don't have genders, they have weights, she explains. Ditto goes for plates, kettlebells, and dumbbells. So already I disagree with plates, kettlebells, and dumbbells because the sport, I mean, there's kettlebell sport. I don't know enough about that. But the reason why barbells are spec'd the way they are, and they've been spec'd the way they are for 95 years, the modern Olympic Games brought in weightlifting in 1904, but then they made an official triathlon of lifting weights, which was the snatch, the clean and jerk, and the clean and press. And then later in 1972, it was just the snatch and the clean and jerk. That barbell has been spec'd the way it has for quite a while. Now, when we introduced women into weightlifting in 1987 for the first world championships for women's weightlifting, and then in 2000 for weightlifting in the Olympics, it was a smart idea to have a women's barbell because of the diameter. So there are specs to these things because this sport, where people take these barbells from, there's an important difference there. Okay, we need to have a smaller diameter of a barbell for women because we need to have a standard, right? We need to have a standard, something that CrossFit always talks about. What is the standard? What is the standard for this person? What is the standard for this person? The standard has to be set, and the only logical standard would be to the average competitive athlete woman's hands. Can they hook grip this bar? And my thought process is like, you need to have that smaller diameter so that the hook grip can happen. Hook grip, guys, is something that is absolutely a non-negotiable in weightlifting specifically. It helps you lift more weights, and it's just absolutely a part. It's like if you're a quarterback gripping the ball in a certain way, or pitchers, they have to hold the ball. I mean, it is part of the technical aspect of the lift, something that needs to occur. So yes, there needs to be a women's barbell there. So I don't know that you can say that about kettlebells and dumbbells. There's no sport that has been around for forever that is spec'd for men and women. But yeah, I mean, I guess you could argue it in kettlebell sport. That's kind of seems like a silly argument to me in the first place. People of any gender can use any weighted barbell. so long as they have the requisite strength to move it well and move it safely. Calling the heavier 45-pound barbell a men's barbell and the lighter 35-pound barbell the women's barbell suggests that all men are stronger than all women, says Royce. Why does that suggest that? Just because there's more weight? You realize you can add plates to make it so you lift the same. That's my answer. Like, women, sure, they can lift more than men, but on average, and I guess I could say generally, or maybe most of the time, or like very much most of the time, men are going to have bigger hands and they're going to be stronger than women. I don't know why we have to debate that, but that's for sure a thing. For sure. Ask every single person in the world who's going to be stronger, a man or a woman. They're going to probably say man. Like, I have this article here. It's in grip strength. A woman in the 90th percentile would be at the 10th percentile for men. And grip is oftentimes a good test for overall strength. But if we look at specific strength, if we look at like the back squat, if you have a very athletic, very strong built woman who practices the back squat and you have an untrained man, yes, she's probably going to squat more than him. And there are some men who are very capable, who train really hard, who do not outlift the best women. That absolutely happens. But I don't think that the 35-pound and the 45-pound barbell, calling them men's and women's, assumes that all men are stronger than all women. I don't know how you can draw that assumption. But let's move on. It's not the case, and it's physically dangerous to imply such, okay? Anyone who's ever stepped foot into a CrossFit box knows that there are absolutely women in a CrossFit class who outlift men in a CrossFit class, she says. My daughter, for example, can outlift my husband any day of the week. Well, okay, I don't know. The odds of that happening are very slim. I'm sorry. It's very slim. That's an anecdote from me, from your boy. The odds of that happening are very slim. And if they do happen, it's in specific lifts, and like still your daughter is nowhere near as strong as your husband. I'm sorry. That is just, it's just no way. There's no way. If there was a general way of testing strength, throwing a punch, throwing a ball, running speed, jumping, like so many different things that aren't specific to modalities that are expressed in CrossFit specifically, that's whatever. Anyways, let's move on. When you tell people what barbell they should be grabbing on based on their gender, you increase the risk that an individual lifts more weight than they are physically capable of. You're implying that if a man cannot handle the heavier barbell, that he is less of a man, and that is a bad thing. You're bridging that gap. You're the one bridging that gap. I've definitely given men a women's barbell. Just, hey man, that barbell's lighter. You're learning how to snatch. You can't do it yet. Just use the lighter barbell. And if they're emasculated by that, that's their fucking problem. I don't give a shit. I honest to God, I've literally taught, I would say, in the thousands of people how to snatch and clean and jerk. And I'm not fucking kidding you. Like, in person, at least near 1,000 people. And I have definitely used a 35-pound women's barbell to give to a man. And like, if they're like, oh, well, I'll obviously be like, no, dude, you're not good enough yet. You're just not good. So let's get you better. And the obvious increase would be to the 45-pound barbell, which is spec'd out for the sport of weightlifting for men. Like, you're not going to change that. And I think if we need to make a spec'd barbell for men and women in the sport of CrossFit, and we want the CrossFit outline of the community to kind of funnel down into the games, then yeah, there needs to be men's and women's barbells, because that's what's going to be used at the games. A thinner diameter for the women than the men. And so guys, by the way, parts of this are like quoted or sections of quoting. And then parts of it are actually editorial. They seem like they are words coming from the person writing it. So it seems like this person is not actually reporting what this person is saying. They're agreeing with it. If I'm gathering this. And when an individual lifts more weight than they are physically capable of, well, that increases the risk of injury. So if we're looking at the snatch and the clean and jerk, the way that I train people how to snatch and clean and jerk, I don't give a fuck whether you're a CrossFitter, weightlifter, powerlifter, whatever. I'm going to train you with the knowledge and history and methodology of weightlifting that, again, was developed 95 years ago. So I'm going to teach that person that way. I don't care about how much weight they can lift. I make sure they move the proper way. That dictates the weight. So again, like I had said before, if I give someone a training bar and they're a grown-ass man, I'd be like, hey man, that's what kids lift. I wouldn't fucking say that, obviously, but that is what the standard barbell for kids is, what we would call a training bar. And then there's a standard barbell for women. And we just determine which one they should use. Again, men's and women's barbell is just the way that this sport was developed. You are inherently excluding non-binary folks, she says. I'm not sure I want to touch on that one. I'll let you guys touch on that one in the comments. Sorry. I'm sorry. I can't. I just don't. Whatever. Anyways, there are so many ways for a coach to help figure out which barbell to use. You can simply refer to the barbells by how much they weigh to allow people to pick the barbell they think is best for them based on the exercise. If, for example, you are doing a barbell bicep finisher, you might tell people to pick the barbell that allows them to get 20 more or more reps unbroken. You can refer to the barbells based on how small or large hand friendly they are. You could, for example, tell people to pick a barbell that they can hook grip. Finally, you can suggest that people vary the barbell they use class to class, so long as they never pick a bar that is heavier than they can lift safely. CrossFit, after all, is the sport of constantly varied movements and varying barbell width and weight. So this part is actually a good argument. CrossFit is the sport of constantly varied movements and varying barbell width and weight, just another way to add a little variety into your fitness routine. You know, these are spec'd towards weightlifting. So I have seen so many at CrossFit events where they shorten the barbell because they need to fit in the lanes. They can use axle barbells. They can use all of these different things that do not delineate from men's and women's, but always we're going to have weight be the difference, right? Weight, there's going to be women's weights, there's going to be men's weights. The rings are going to typically be higher for men when they set them up for, the pull-up bars. All of these things are going to be different. This is a weird lexical debate, but again, we call the shot a men's and women's shot. We call the javelin a men's and women's javelin. We have a men's height for volleyball and a women's height for volleyball of the net. We have the women's basketball. It's always called a women's basketball. It's only 28.5 centimeters. Okay, we're not going to call it the 28.5 centimeter ball. We're going to call it the women's ball. Softball, like the bases are closer, the pitcher is closer. There's so many differences where we would call men's and women's sports and men's and women's equipment and men's and women's balls that they use. That sentence can be a little weird, but you get the idea here, right? It just seems like, look, if someone's going to be offended by me calling it a women's barbell and saying, hey, can you use the women's barbell because you can't lift the men's barbell properly, which is a rare occasion, right? I'm going to make sure that someone can sit in a deep squat. I'm going to make sure that they have flexibility. I'm going to make sure that they can do things physically before they can even snatch. And hopefully when they do snatch, that they can move the barbell for their gender properly. And again, when it comes into the non-binary folks and excluding them, that is a tricky one. It's a tough one because, again, that's a discussion that I don't know if I'm willing to have. Anyways, I'm genuinely curious to see what your thoughts are in the comments section. Also, if you're new here, please subscribe. I think it's like 50% of you guys that view these videos don't even subscribe, and it helps me tremendously. I'll see you in the next video.